do some work session work prior to the board meeting agenda. I'd like to thank Chris Davis and Michelle Ramey for being here this afternoon from our purchasing department. They will be, the first thing on our agenda this afternoon is they are going to provide you with a report of the current projects that are going on and that they're working on as far as the school district is concerned, which they are quite numerous. And I'd also like to thank them for all the work they are doing, getting these things out to bid, prepping the information, the documents. So at this time, I'd like to invite Chris, Michelle, whomever, to the podium, and you all, you have the platform. Thank you.
Thank you. Here. Okay. So what we've provided for you all is just a little update on some of your grants, some of the ELC grants and the ESSER projects. So the first one you can see is your ELC grant for your frame tents and pop-up tents. Those have been completed. The purchase order has been issued. Just waiting on delivery. That's for Westridge and East Middle School. The 2 utility terrain vehicles under the ELC grant, those have been awarded and ordered. So hoping those will come in about 8 to 10 weeks. Of course, the access driveway to Westridge High School, we've asked for a new project cost estimate since we got delayed on that project last year. So that cost estimate has went up from
It was
testing.
Your face was priceless, I have to say.
Testing. There you go. Okay. So that cost, the new cost estimate is, as you can see, a little over $2 million. So if this is approved by the board, they're recommending, the engineers are recommending that we submit the permits early January and hopefully get the approval from the state and everything by the end of February. Bid the project sometime in March and get it awarded and hopefully get started early April of 2023.
Chris, on that project, do we have to have the money appropriated before we can go to bid?
Be better, yeah.
So according to the resolution that was passed back in February of 2021 by the county commission, they requested that we get the engineer to do the study, do the plans,
Right.
and bring the price quote back to this board for approval, and then on over to the county commission. So
Right.
tonight on the agenda, it's on the agenda already, so we will do a motion,
Good.
and then that will take it back to the county commission either Thursday night or else the next, that will put us all in compliance. And I think the way that they had mentioned that we word that to begin with, that we asked for money to be appropriated out of our fund balance that would be equal to whatever the bid was that was agreed upon by us and by the purchasing agent. Is that,
I think we'll have to go back and
well,
review that. It's been a little while, but
I pulled a
think you're
copy
right.
that, it says, be it further resolved that the engineering firm provide a cost estimate for construction of said project, and that the estimate be returned to the County Board of Education and Sullivan County Commission for additional consideration and appropriation of funds. And,
so we probably do need to send that the new cost estimate back to them, because I think we sent the 1.9.
right, and
So.
and I've got a copy of that new
Yeah.
estimate with us too.
Okay.
But I just wanted to clarify that, to make sure that we are on the same page.
Did,
I think so.
I don't remember, it may have been the first part, but do you have any idea of the timeline that they're, after starting the construction, how long the project's supposed to take?
I don't.
That's fine.
Yeah, that'll come in with the contractor, I'm sure, when the bids come in.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense.
I can't remember if they projected.
That-
You remember, Randy?
I think it's about 15 months
I was thinking
altogether.
a year,
Because
probably a little
by
longer.
starting it in April, they were projecting that it would be finished by the end of next year, if I remember correctly. So that would give about 15 months.
Thank you.
And with that type of project, hopefully, we won't have delays like we're seeing in other projects in getting supplies. The Bluff City Elementary School cooling tower replacement project, that's under ESSER. The contract has been executed with Holston Engineers. Project estimate, as you can see on that one, they're estimating around $343,000. The bid opens on that, actually next week, on the 25th. The Sullivan Central Middle School HVAC control and switchgear replacement under ESSER. Contract has been executed with Holston Engineering. Project estimate is over $4 million, and we're hoping to get the bid ad goes out, October 30th, and then the bid opens, November 22nd. The request for qualifications for the architectural engineering services for the Central Middle School track resurfacing project under ESSER. Proposals have been received, and that's currently under the evaluation, by the evaluation committee. So we're just waiting to get all those back. And then the projects that you all approved, I believe, in September under ESSER were the roofing projects and the HVAC projects. If you'll flip the page over. On Sullivan Heights Middle School for the 2 chiller replacements. The contract has been executed with Holston Engineering for that. Project estimate is a little over $1 million, and we have a tentative date to run the bid ad for that November 27th, and then hopefully open the bid around December 15th. The Sullivan Heights Middle School, the 8 rooftop HVAC replacements, same thing, contract's been executed. Project estimate is a little over $1 million on that one. I'm hoping to do the same thing, advertise that on the 27th and open the bid on the 15th. Bluff City
Excuse
Elementary.
me, may I ask a question?
Sure.
And it's just my ignorance and lack of knowledge. I don't understand, like, of the Bluff City Elementary School HVAC replacement. Bid ad December the 18th.
That's when we would run the advertisement.
I
in the
understand that
newspaper.
part. My question is, why in the heck is it December the 18th?
Because they were still working on the drawings and everything, the engineers are.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome. So, yeah, tentative, we're looking at December 18th, running that ad, and then opening bids in January. The West Ridge Votech Annex HVAC replacement, we've put that on hold, for the school department till we get some of these other projects bid and opened and see kind of what the costs are gonna be, actually be. Mary Hughes Elementary School HVAC project, that is a proposal from Kane Ration West. Contracts, have been requested from them. They brought a construction estimate of $2,500,000 on the construction portion, and then, the architectural fees is $150,000, that's 6% of your total construction estimate. So if the bids come in over that, then their rate would be adjusted. So that is going by your date statement.
Chris, back up on the Votech Annex at West Ridge. I thought the engineers were going to come up with a design that would be separate from the rest of Central Middle.
They were, and we kind of put it on hold. I talked to Evelyn, and she said till we can get these other bids in to see if the money is gonna be there for that one.
But if the money's gonna be there, if
We
the
will
design,
proceed.
if the design is not ready, we won't be able to meet the deadline of,
And I'm the one that put that on hold, Chairman Jones, because as you look through this list, the cost estimates are coming in much higher
Right.
than what we anticipated. That, in addition to some additional work on the science classrooms, we've been at East High School. I've got those both kind of on hold because I wanted to see where we were when we land on this. This is,
And they may have started, did they start, Michelle, on the design for that one? Not yet.
Not yet, but we're waiting.
So they're kind of on hold too.
Thanks.
Let's see, the Indian Springs Elementary School HVAC replacement. Kane Ration West is the architects on that project. Their estimating construction cost at 1.2 million. And then their, of course, architectural fee there is listed based off the 1.2, and that could change once the bids come in. Mary Hughes Elementary School roof replacement project, that is also with King Rash West. Their construction estimate is $420,000 on that. Of course, their architectural fees is based on the 6% of the $420,000, which could be adjusted. And then the remaining, the Bluff City Elementary, Emmett Elementary, Miller Perry Elementary, and Ketron Elementary in Indian Springs for the roof replacements. We actually have a request for qualifications out on that now. We will open those on October 20th, and then we'll send those to the evaluation committee for review. The request for qualifications for architectural engineering services for the HVAC replacement projects at Rock Springs Elementary and Miller Perry. Same thing, that opens on October 20th, and we'll get those ready, get those packets ready, and get those to the evaluation committee to make a decision on the architect or engineer for those projects.
What kind of time frame are we looking at though, once it comes back for actual completion of Rock Springs and Indian Springs?
From the architect, well, we'll go through the selection committee and choose whoever it's gonna be, and then we'll get a contract and everything from them, and then go from there. And get a cost estimate for you.
I'm concerned about the timeline for the ESSER 3.1.
And, we are too. We're pushing them as fast as we can to get these contracts and get them ready and get them bid.
Is it the building committee that's, who review, you
It's
say
a-
committees, I just.
It's evaluation committee, so we choose 3 to 5 people to be on that committee to review each request for qualification that comes in. So if you get 5 submittals or 6, they'll go through each one of those and they score them and evaluate them.
But if they come back in on October the 20th, I guess my real question is, once we choose them, how long is it gonna take for us to be ready to go to bid for the roof at Rock Springs and also Indian Springs?
That's what we'll have to determine. When they're chosen, we'll set up a meeting immediately with them.
Do you have any idea?
We don't know that till
We
we make the
really
selection.
don't until we make the selection and then get the drawings.
June 24th. Yes, 24, and the ESSER 2 is June 23.
That's why these are in 3.
18 months and 3.
Correct.
Just curious, and maybe just crazy, but on 3 of them, you have the 6% of total construction. Is that just because the architect, the different group that's doing it? Because
Yeah.
some don't and some do. What's that?
All of these that are under ESSER will follow that 6%.
Okay.
And same, yeah, and same thing for the ELC, because it's federal, it's a federal.
So I'm listed on a couple, not others, so
Yeah.
they'll all have it.
They will.
Okay, thank you.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is a federal requirement, right? 6%.
Correct. Which right now, that's pretty good, because a lot of the architects and engineers would have a higher fee than that. You know, some are, we've seen at 9%. I'm trying to negotiate it down, but on these, it is that they cannot go over 6%. And that is it for right now. Anybody has any questions?
What questions would the board have about any or all of these projects?
The deadline on this for 2.0 is 2023, and 3.0 is 2023.
And we've discussed that several times, and it seems, I mean, they're changing it a little bit, but do we know for sure now? Is it scheduled or is it finished? I mean, is that still in flux? Because it seems like it's changed quite a bit during the timeline.
And I wish I could give you an answer.
Okay,
and I
so it's still
don't.
changing.
I do have a meeting tomorrow in Greenville with the superintendent's meeting, and the State Department will be there, and I know that's going to be a topic of discussion.
Good.
Not only to get it verbally, but to get something in writing.
That would be nice.
I'm not trying to nitpick, but one thing I noticed
noticed back on our old sheet, the cost estimate to replace both the chillers at Sullivan Heights, we had down 275, and this is 1.15 million. I mean, that's a drastic, how did we, that's a little bit bigger difference than logistics and materials.
I agree, and that's one reason why, one of the projects I said earlier, if we had said, let's hold on that because the numbers were coming in so significantly higher. It's, these numbers, we had some earlier estimates from, architect, and as these things have come in now and getting closer, things are more expensive than were anticipated. And we're seeing that across the board with everything, so.
And I may be wrong, but I'm Mr. Spivey, but it's, I think most of the numbers we had earlier were from our maintenance department without really having any bids. They were just, it's almost a guesstimate to some degree.
It was a guesstimate between our maintenance, people, our past history, and some input from current architects that we were working with.
Yeah, we didn't say we won't spend it all, so we're thinking we have several million left. Looks like we cheaped it up.
With what we have here, does that take care of all the HVAC projects that we approved last meeting?
Everything that was approved at the last meeting, and on the list that, Mr. Spivey just held up, is listed here under ESER 3.0 projects, the roofing and the HVAC. One of the things that, we may end up doing is potentially the roofing seems to be more feasible of getting it done prior to June of 2023. We may come back and say we need to move some of these roofing projects into 2.0 and move the central HVAC, which is 2.0, into 3.0. So we may do some trading back and forth once these numbers start coming in.
Chris, I noticed that under ESER 3.0, Mary Hughes, it said re-roof the entire building with metal. I thought the decision was still up in the air of whether it's metal or shingles.
It is,
It
and
is.
we'll get pricing on both of those. One thing to note there, when it was taken to the historic, commission in Piney Flats, both of those were, talked about and both were approved, either metal or shingles.
I knew that's what we discussed last week at the financial management meeting was choice of the two. I didn't know if a decision had been made or not.
And it could be to availability, just as much as cost on it right now.
And I hate to keep asking the same thing. I was trying to get it right in my head, but the RFQ process, I mean, it happens on every project, on everything, so it normally, is there a normal? I mean, is there a normal how long that process takes as far as RFQ? I mean, I know there's the bidding process.
Yeah, once you issue it out, it's typically we wait 3 to 4 weeks to get those back in
Okay.
from submittals.
So if it's going out on the 20th of October, it'll probably be back by mid-November, somewhere in there, first week or second week in November.
Whatever we've set on that date, yeah, for the opening.
I mean, on the RFQs, it just says open, so on that, if that's the opening date, then you expect it back by 3 weeks or so.
No, it actually will open, we'll get those back on October 20th.
Oh.
That's when they're due in.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood what it's saying. Okay, so
Yeah,
that's good.
no.
So the RFQ process is already started. It'll be
Correct.
over by Thursday.
Correct.
Because that's 2 weeks.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Back on the
Well, let me, and I'm sorry, Chairman Jones, let me follow up on Mr. Ireson, because I want to make sure that we have clarity here. When those RFQs come back in, that's not the end of the selection process. Then those, ever how many submittals they are presented, and we have to, or the people who are on the first group of people do an evaluation where we score those submittals that come in. I have been part of that process. Charlie's been part of that process. How many do you have score those?
Typically, depending on the size of the project, 3 to 5.
3 to
We like
5.
an uneven number.
Then once we score those, we turn those back in, and then it goes to this committee that Chris was referencing earlier, which is an evaluation committee, and then they tally and.
Well, you all are, or whoever's scoring it, you are the evaluation committee and everything. It'll come back to us and we score. We'll do a bid tab, or if you wanna call it that, and you'll see who scored the highest overall with whoever was scoring it.
Now, that, once we get those, they generally ask for those to come back to them 3 to 5 days, something like that. I got mine last Friday, I returned it to you Monday for 3 of the projects, so it is definitely a process.
You get to read a lot.
Well, I bet. But that's quicker than I thought, though, 3 to 5 days, that's a good.
Yeah, we usually give them a deadline. Because if not, we don't want it dragging out 3 weeks evaluating 4 proposals.
So after the 3 to 5 date, so after the 3 to 5 date process, I know I keep trying to get the whole thing in my head, but it's helpful, so
They'll
I
come back
appreciate
to
it.
us, and we tallied them based on their scores and everything, and then we can show them, you know, XYZ, whatever company, this architect scored the highest overall.
And I know it has several, I mean, you've got a lot of work going on over there, so I know that's a slow process to some degree because there's so much quantity. So once that 3 to 5 day process comes back, you guys get it and you score it. And then at that point, you award that to the architect?
We're ready to come back.
Okay. And then they start the process of what they do
They'll
before
get
we ever
their
go to bids.
speed proposal, cost proposal ready for us.
That's why I was asking about the timeline.
Yeah, so that's when it slows down a way. Okay, so this, the
Not-
part that you're doing.
Not too much, we have Michelle, she pushes them,
Oh, good.
she gets that
Thank you,
information
Michelle.
pretty quick. She stays on them.
That's good.
Back to my question on the Sullivan Central HVAC. The last time we met, they were talking about doing it with possible alternate bids. Central's problem with getting the switchgear, they said it was 52 weeks out, and one place was 80 months out, 80,
52 weeks.
52 weeks,
on
82
these
months or something.
Switchgear, I believe, yeah.
Are they still, when they design it, are they still going to design it in such a way that we can bid parts of it? My question was, if switchgear is all we need, which I think they said was an estimate of about 500,000.
In like phases and
Yes.
and getting it done.
Can we phase it in so that if
Yeah.
the switchgear bid was not available and we had to postpone it even 2 years, we would have the rest of it ready to start? That's what they had said they would do.
Initially, I believe we are going to bid the entire project together. And if there is a longer lead time on the switchgear, we are going to phase the project to where we can get whatever is available. If the HVAC's available, we can install that.
Right.
And then come back to the switchgear.
If we can phase it so that we wouldn't lose a lot of time with what we're dealing with here, it would work. We definitely don't want to start a $3 or $4 million project and find that we can't do any of it because of that one switchgear that's.
Can't get it in.
He said up to 500,000, I believe, if I'm not mistaken on that. Cost. Is it sticking on
So, one thing I will add, into the conversation about Central is one of the, topics that came up was the potential of looking at, different options, as Chairman Jones said. And one of those was possibly, going through the ceiling, opening up the ceiling, and there was the question of, does the ceiling have asbestos? We did spend $1,500 to have a company come out and test that ceiling at Central and found that we do not have any asbestos, and that was well worth the $1,500 to find out that we did not. So if indeed we need to do work in the ceiling, that will be something that can happen, and we don't have to do all the other pieces of that.
that? That could be a
It goes
cheaper
along with
option
that.
if we do.
Mhm.
Whoever thought of that, great idea. I'm glad you touched it. Good.
What other questions would you have of Chris. All right, if there are no other questions, what I would say is, or what I'd like to say is, thank you very much, Chris. Thank you very much, Michelle, for taking the time to come over and apprise the board of what's going on. And again, thank you very much for all your work and your support of our school district.
Thank you.
Very helpful, thank you.
You're welcome.
And you're welcome back anytime.
Thanks.
And you can stay if you want.
Okay.
The next thing I had on my, work session is I wanted to provide you with an attendance update. You'll take one of these and pass those down. Our school year is made up of 9 20-day report periods. And this is the results after the second report period. You can see the first page there is just the percentage of attendance, and then if you turn the page, that will give you the enrollment by grade per school. With our pre-K population, we are at 8,423. If you deduct our pre-K, you can see we're at 8,150. Those numbers are current as of October the 4th. On the front, the first page, you can see there, you may see some slight coloration there, but if you look at percentage of attendance for this year as it compared to last year at the same time, just looking at the first one, you can see that Bluff City Elementary is at 94.92. Last year at the same time, they were at 93.87. So we've really had a lot of focus on our attendance this year for lots of reasons. Mainly, our number one reason is we feel like, you need to be in school to take advantage of what's happening in the classroom and to learn. And Mark Foster has been very active working on our attendance this year. I think you've probably noticed some of the signage that we've got all throughout our school district that says attendance matters. We've tried to communicate that message to our families and also to those in our buildings as well. But you can see some really good numbers here. That we have some where we've fallen behind just a little bit from last year to this year, but it's still really close. But in the end, our goal for every report period is 95%. And we're getting close as a district down there at 94.16 this 20-day report period, but our attendance is improving. So I wanted to share this with you all for two reasons. Number one, so that you can see some of the work that's being done and how that's going, and then to keep you apprised of our enrollment as well. Any questions on that piece?
Mr. Orlowski, I'd just like to say thank you to you and the central office, and Mr. Foster, thank you so much, because we all know that parents, students, teachers, we all get complacent sometimes. But raising our expectations and setting goals and working toward those goals and just reminding everybody again how important it is, I just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rouse.
The one thing I noticed just looking at the schools that actually have gone down slightly, even though it's all slightly, they're all elementary schools. I know we focused a lot on our middle and high school. Are we kind of refocusing on that just a bit now, or is that not?
No, interestingly enough, in an elementary school, when we have a virus or something goes, it really goes. So a best example I can give you here is if you look at Sullivan Gardens Elementary, their attendance fell off this 20 days. The first 20 days of school, they were knocking it out of the park every day. There were days that they only had 2 students or 3 students and the whole school absent. So And when the numbers in the school are lower, it doesn't take much to shoot that percentage, up or down. So, I think we'll have some good numbers coming back. So, but that, you know, on any given day, Sullivan Gardens was number one, the first 20 days, just about every day. So I thought we were going to finally have one school that had perfect attendance one day, but we never made it, but they got close with only 2 students absent one day. All right, moving on to the next item I have for work session. I actually have 3 things here that I want to talk about, and they all have to do with finances. So the first one is, I'm going to invite Ingrid to come up. She is going to share about our school audits, not the central office or not the school district audit, but these are the audits of our individual schools. She'll be passing out the report from, we have an independent auditing agency, and that is Blackburn, Childers, and Stegall, who go out and audit our schools. Our bookkeepers in our schools are probably the most conscientious people possibly in our school district. And I'm going to turn it over to Ingrid now and let her talk about this audit.
Well, first, let me tell you, it's with great pleasure that I give you that audit. This is probably the best audit we've ever had since I've been there. And considering what all happened in the 21-22 school year, I think that's phenomenal. These ladies, and I say ladies because that's all we have is ladies, so I can say that. These ladies do a phenomenal job. They always do. And anyone that's been an auditor knows that your job is to find problems. It's not pleasant, but that's what their job is. They're to find the problems that we have. This year, the 2 problems that we have are very minimal, and they've already been fixed, so it's great. We only had 2 findings, and those 2 findings were at West Ridge High School. And if you can imagine, you know what we've been through. We just consolidated 3 high schools and started a brand new mega school in my mind. So for us to just have 2 findings, it's not a big deal. And I will tell you, Kevin Peters, who is our lead auditor with Blackburn Childers, has spoke highly of our bookkeepers, and he said the books were in order, everything was the way it needed to be, and everybody was very cooperative with him when he went through with his workers. But if you look on page 84, there's a bunch of stuff. If you get bored and you want to put yourself to sleep, feel free to read the first 84 pages. But on page 84, that's going to tell you what findings are carried over from last year and what findings were corrected. We only had 2 findings last year, and one of those was corrected. So we added a new finding. 85 starts where our new findings are for this year. The first finding is on safekeeping of cash. When we opened West Ridge High School, the safe room was not completed. And it's still not completed to this day. We're working on it, but you can imagine the amount of money that travels through that school, and we want to make sure we've got an appropriate safe room for those to make those deposits. Whether that's from a late night ball game, they did a Friday night football gate, they need a place to put that. That could be from where teachers are collecting money in their classroom, they need a place to put that if the bookkeeper's going to get there. So we're working on a room that has that. They can drop that in a drop safe and everything will be good. We didn't have that at the start of school. So there was a money bag that was misplaced. We still have not found it. The last place we remember it was on a desk, and nobody has seen it since. So whether somebody picked it up off that desk and did whatever they wanted to do with it, or maybe it got misplaced, thrown away, we're not sure. But that money bag is missing. And that was about $300 in cash that was getting ready to be deposited in the bank that just didn't quite make it there. All the start of the school thing, it's understandable. I don't think anybody pocketed that was responsible for it. Now, whether or not someone else came through and took that is another case, but that was the first finding. That was a 1 incident thing, and it's not happened again, and I don't expect it to ever happen again. The second finding, we had 2 restricted accounts at West Ridge High School that had a deficit balance at the end of the year. Any restricted account that you have on your books cannot have a deficit balance. So we all know this was the inaugural year for West Ridge High School. So we wanted the prom and graduation to be top-notch events. We wanted them to make history, and I believe they did. However, when June 30th came, those two accounts for prom and graduation were in the hole. I think we had significant reason to go all out for those first two events, and we did. Those two went in the hole. We will manage that next year, and we'll make sure that that does not happen. So, I hope, it's always been my hope, and it's always our bookkeeper's hope, that next year is a perfect audit. The likelihood of that happening is pretty slim. However, we have great bookkeepers who know their job. We have great auditors who are willing to help us if they see a problem, help us address it and get it corrected. So, my hope is next year, this time I stand to you and say this is the first ever perfect audit for internal school funds. And I'll tell you this, with 15 different schools and each of them getting their own separate audit, the likelihood of a perfect audit is just multiplied by 15 times, because that's a major feat, major. So if you see a bookkeeper that's in our system, I encourage you to encourage them. Our bookkeepers are not paid a lot of money. They could go anywhere else and make more money, but they are the most dedicated group of people that we have. And if you see them out, I would appreciate it if you would encourage them. We're always trying to encourage them that, hey, you're doing a great job, but if that came from a board member, I know it speaks volumes. But I'll be glad to answer any questions that you've got on the audit.
I guess just want to make sure I heard right though. So at the very last, you basically said that we had 14 perfect audits and we had one school that had 2 small issues.
That's exactly correct. And we used to recognize every bookkeeper that had a perfect audit. We'd have this place full if we did that tonight.
That's fantastic.
But even in the area where there was, finding the money was there, it just was not in the account to cover the prom and the graduation.
We actually overspent those two accounts.
Right.
They will be cleared up by the end of this year, and there will be money in those accounts. There was no missing money
Right.
except for the money bag that was mislocated.
And as a high school principal, former high school principal, it's amazing.
Well, what I would add to that is, I can't remember a time when we can say we've had 14 out of 15 perfect audits. That's remarkable. So that's number one. Number two, in this office, we have Vanessa Phillips, who offers support to our bookkeepers in our schools. And she does a great job as well. And then I think you're all looking at the person who manages all that, and that's Ingrid, who is there to respond to questions, inquiries, and to provide assistance. But the leadership in our finances from Ingrid is incredible. So kudos to everyone. Following up on that, you can see Ingrid has responded with her with the management's corrective action plan, and those are the last 2 pages in your book. So certainly you'll want to look through this. I have spent some time, I haven't completed it by any means, going through and looking. Our principals with our bookkeepers, I think it's, when you see this, you can see we have some very good decision makers as well. And people are savvy with our funds, and I think make some good decisions, so.
Hope those events for the end of the year.
Yes. The second thing that I wanted to bring to your attention in regard to that area is, I think all of you have probably had a call or an email or a concern from an employee in regard to some of the payroll situations that we've been challenged with this year. We continue to be challenged in that area, and as a result, I have talked with Ingrid, I've talked with others, and I've made the decision to move Amy Grizzell into our Human Resources Department to be a direct liaison with the payroll department that is located at the courthouse. I am hopeful that we can begin bridging some of those gaps, and you know, our employees have that point of contact here that's consistent, and I think the the employee is the person, that I don't want to get caught, with having to deal with errors of any kind, no matter where the error is made. And we hope to put some more, checkpoints in place to alleviate those things happening, at this level. Amy Grizzell is a person I would consider to be, have almost expert status with Skyward, the piece of software that is being utilized for, payroll, as well as, accounts receivable, inventory, you name it. She knows that piece of software. In addition, she will continue to do some of her, current responsibilities, which is, E-rate. She's also a Google administrator, for our, admin team, so she will still retain her title as technology coordinator, but she will be picking up some additional responsibilities via the HR department and, work with Ingrid there.
Mr. Elk, I'd like to say thank you for doing that, for a couple of reasons. Our employees should not have to spend time trying to figure out, are my sick days correct? Is my pay correct? They shouldn't have to worry with that. They've got enough to do. When a teacher has to take time from their planning time to try to chase down where they're supposed to call and who they're supposed to call to get corrected, then that in turn is cheating our children, because they're taking planning time that they should be planning. However we can go about correcting, fixing, this problem, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? The next piece of information, well, let me go back to my, I think where I wanna head now is back to our board agenda. So let's go back to our board agenda. And, the director's update, I'll get into that during the meeting, but there's several dates and times I want to talk about there, and, hopefully we will be able to recognize our 5 reward schools here this evening as well. Let's go on to item number 6, unfinished business, and I'll turn that over to, Mr. Jones at this time, which is Colonial Heights property.
The internet auction did take place for Colonial Heights. We had 2 bidders, as all of you know. The top bid was $2.3 million from Lakeway Christian. And in order to finalize this process, we must take action tonight to accept or reject the bid. And my recommendation is that we would accept the bid of $2.3 million from Lakeway. And then once we take that action, it goes to the county commission for them to approve us selling that according to the Financial Management Act. And I have a resolution that I'm looking at here that we can send to the county commission if we vote to approve that tonight. And so any questions or discussion on that? We've returned it over to Mr. Hull to finalize the contract when the sale takes place and so forth. And I would suggest that we put a date in there that it has to be completed by within 60 days or whatever number we want to come up with. We don't want to leave it open-ended. I'd like to see it closed by before December the 30th, the 31st. But we do have a resolution that we need to go to the county commission for them to approve or to accept. I think the word is accept more than anything. Our disposal of that. But during the official meeting, then, do we want to do a motion and a second, and any discussion that you might have. And then there may be an addendum to that that will follow. If it does, you can present that. The second thing is Sullivan Middle School. You have before you, or you will have before you, a proposal. And this comes from a community group that had contacted us. We'll put together a recommended use for Sullivan Gardens. But before you consider this proposal, there is a recommendation that will be coming from Ms. Rafalowski, and she's going to discuss that recommendation at this time, after further evaluation of what we've done.
In our latest conversations and looking at our situation within the district, we currently have quite a bit of furniture being stored at this location, Sullivan Gardens Middle School. With the sale of Colonial Heights Middle, we are going to be moving a considerable amount of furniture from there as well. We currently don't have a storage facility that is suitable for housing those extra items that we have. So as we clear out Colonial Heights, we are moving those items to Sullivan Gardens Middle at this time. We also still have items remaining at Bluntland that we have to get out of there. We still have some items in the gym that the county's been kind enough to let us keep there, mainly appliances that we have there for storage that we also need to move and get those relocated. And right now, our relocation and our storage facility is at Sullivan Gardens Middle. So this evening, I will be making a recommendation to the board in regards to the Sullivan Gardens property, that we remove that from our discussion as far as moving ahead with any kind of other use for the time being, because of the amount of furniture and storage items that we have in there. If we were to dispose of that property, I have no idea where we could even begin to think about moving the items out of there, because it is considerable what we have in there. The gym floor is full, and the classrooms still have furniture in them at Sullivan Gardens. We have half of the gym floor at Colonial Heights that is full, and we still have some furnishings in the classrooms at Colonial Heights. We have much of this listed on GovDeals, but Chris and Michelle both are here. They can attest to those items on GovDeals don't get much attention, and when they do, they don't go for very much. And then you have to wait and hope, in some cases, that they actually do come to pick it up, that they just haven't. And we had somebody bid out of Texas $10 on, what was it? What was it?
Track hurdles.
Yeah.
Track hurdles, $10. Well, we've had them sitting forever, and I can't imagine that it was even worth their trip here to pick them up for $10. But anyway, that's the kind of situation we are dealing with. So I am going to recommend to the board that we hold on to that facility for storage at this time. And then, because we don't have another storage facility.
Just, I'm familiar with GovDeals and the way that we have to advertise things on there. At some point, you have to have the ability to dispose of things that aren't bid on. So what is the process on that? I mean, because if we have 1,000 desks, at some point we have to say that's too many. If we're already saying GovDeals, then we're already said it's too many. So at some point, we need to get rid of things, and I'm just kind of curious how that process goes.
Chris, you wanna talk about gov deals? There, it is, you know, we have things that we've had on gov deals for some time that, you know, we can dispose of afterwards, but, it's still a process because these are items that are purchased with taxpayer money and,
Yeah, nobody, no taxpayer likes to see a dumpster full of good desks or chairs, so we try to keep selling them. However, now you all can donate them to another school system if you choose to do that. You can always do that, any school system. You know, there's some probably in the area that may love to have desks or chairs or something like that. We try and get rid of any of the broken ones, anything like that, we, you know, we'll look through that surplus and take those to the trash. But it does go, some of it goes very cheap sometimes, you get a really good deal. We sold some stuff, of course, for Amber, the cafeteria equipment and stuff, that does bring a little bit more, a lot of that stainless steel and tables and stuff like that, that sounds pretty good. So,
It just seems that at some point, you have to say,
right,
we have too many of these, and
right,
like you say, I'm a taxpayer, I don't wanna see it in the dumpster either,
Right.
but at the same time,
right.
to say we're gonna have to buy warehouses to put things that we can get rid of, and kind of defeats the purpose of something.
Yeah.
some of the challenge there is that the mode of, classroom seating has changed. Teachers, students prefer tables and chairs versus student desk. And we don't have a market from others for student desk. And quite frankly, it is cheaper to purchase a table and 4 chairs versus if you were buying 4 student desks. But, we have things that are in very good shape that, we do, and, you know, I don't know if it comes back around to, you know, they prefer student desks over tables. But that is one of the things that we have seen from,
Will it come back around?
that, has happened at all grade levels, really. That they have wanted to move away from desk, and in some cases, they opt for the white tables. They can use them as marker boards as well. If you go into a classroom, you'll see that they're using the erasable markers and writing on the table, and socks on their arms and erasing. So those are, it's just a different way of delivering, instruction and for students to participate in the classroom. Thank you, Chris. I didn't mean to put you on the spot,
No,
but
it's
it's,
But if you know of any school system out there,
Yeah, it's
says you can donate to the Burnham system.
Are we restricted also about federal funds that have purchased equipment, about how we can dispose of it, like Carl Perkins monies and so forth?
Correct.
that's a whole different, set of rules when you get into federal monies that has purchased equipment. But that's generally with Carl Perkins, we can't use Title I funds to buy student desks or furniture, those kinds of things that have to be used for instructional materials. So we have a lot of, stuff. We have from time to time requests within our own school district, and we're able to fill those requests pretty quickly. As of right now, we need that facility for storage.
This proposal that you have, Mayor, from Mr. Steffi, I received it, I think last Friday, just an email. Someone had copies printed, so you would have it on record, and you could set that. You notice there's no numbers listed there, no monies listed in that, and just different ideas and so forth. But the other thing that we need to make sure that everyone understands is that we cannot donate property. We can sell it, we can lease it, but we cannot donate. I know it was requested by that we make that as a donation, but by law, we cannot do that. but it would be better used right now for us to have storage and not have to do something with what we have and have to do it in a hurry. This has not been declared surplus, Sullivan was not declared surplus, so, we don't have to take any action, unless somebody wants to put it on record that, we voted to keep it open for storage or something of this nature. It is part of the Sullivan Elementary campus, so that should not be, an issue.
Mr. Jones, would that even be needed as far as to make a motion for that to be, I mean?
No,
Okay.
would not be not unless you just want something in the minutes. And,
Okay.
but I wanted to make sure that you had the proposal that was given to you by Mr. Steady here. And now I don't know if there'll be anyone here tonight from their committee or not, but we do need to accept that and keep it for historical purposes and make it part of the minutes probably that they presented that presentation to us. I think that would be appropriate. West Street access driveway. We've already discussed that.
I'm gonna do the pool survey next.
You want to do it next?
I'm
Okay.
gonna do that pool survey then. I'll-
Okay.
The next thing on the agenda is the Sullivan Heights pool survey. That was something that the board requested that I put together at the last meeting. So let me pass this around, and this is a very brief survey. But I do want you to take just a few minutes to look at this.
Before we move too far on, this is a dumb question, but how are we listed on Gov Deals as a seller? Because I can't find anything for Sullivan County.
Some things just came off, it'd be Sullivan County Department of Education.
Okay. I don't see anything listed.
We
I
have.
mean, I don't see us as a seller, I don't see.
Do we have
Sullivan
anything
County.
listed right now, Charlie?
No.
No,
Have
one
you
just
taken it
came
down?
off, they just, buyer just paid for a
What, Chris?
van, or a bus, wasn't it?
We had a couple of buses and an old
Buses.
van that just went off this week.
Okay.
We have had, I know that we've had lots of furniture on there that we've tried to sell.
Yeah,
I don't know,
I mean,
that the
that's-
track hurdles, once it's
Our
sold, it
county's
comes
not
off,
listed
correct?
on it.
Yeah, it'll come off the list. We can run a report and show what you've sold like in the past year, or past 2 years.
Actually, it was on our quarterly report, what had been sold, it wasn't a lot, but there was some things there. But once we get these, Colonial Heights cleared out, and in there, we'll do some more, or Charlie will do some more posting through Chris to get some more items there.
Okay. Thank you.
You could bid on all of them.
There's plenty out there. That's why I was surprised I didn't see the county on there.
I think the highest I've seen anything really go for on Gov Deals was some of the things that, were food service, like Food Slicer, some of those things, there was a restaurant in Jonesboro who watched those and gotten some bidding back and forth. As you look at, this survey, this is for our middle schoolers and try to make it easy so that they could just circle which middle school they're at. I did put their name on here so we'd know, be able to follow up with that interest, and then their grade level. And, actually I have 5 questions there. I plan to be a member of the high school swim team. Just yes or no, I am interested in participating in a competitive middle school swim team. 3, I am currently participating on a club swim team. 4, describe your ability as a swimmer. Are you a beginner, intermediate, or consider yourself proficient? And 5, I'm also interested in the following sports. Sometimes with middle schoolers, they have lots of interest, and they may say they want to be a swimmer, but they also want to play basketball. And these are things that we just would need to weigh back and forth to see what our numbers really look like. I am happy to change this, alter it, modify it, or add to it, or take away from it in any way you want, but, this is what I've come up with so far.
I think it needs a parent signature on it, please. Because as a student, I'm sitting there and I wanna do all this. But mom and dad's got to be willing to help transport me as well. So I think it'd be good for possibly them to go home and come back.
Yes. I know that this year we added, boys volleyball as a, not really sport, I'm not sure how it is, but I know it's a extracurricular club. Are we looking at doing that for the middle schools also? Or have we even thought about it?
I had not thought about that. We have it at the high school level. It is not a TSSAA sanctioned sport at this time. Not to say it won't be in the future. It's still considered a club sport, but, just about every high school around started the boys volleyball programs, somewhere, I wanna say about 4 years ago. I don't know of any current middle school boys volleyball programs. That's just, I just don't know.
I know that some of our, boys in our clubs are actually getting college scholarships already, so that's great.
And certainly, if you're a male on this survey, you could check volleyball. I did not put that it's girls volleyball or boys volleyball. Didn't specify soccer or golf or any of those, so certainly they could check volleyball.
And I asked a question about club swimmers, and was informed that there's only one club, so we didn't need to worry about that, so. That's about as good as I think.
All right, so, I'll be recommending this survey to you all this evening, and I'll make sure that I add the parent signature, so if you have any other suggestions, certainly we'll be open to that during that time as well. Now, Mr. Jones, Westridge Access Driveway.
We talked about that during Chris's presentation. And I distributed to you, I think, a resolution, a copy of the resolution that was passed by the county commission authorizing us to spend up to $200,000 to hire the engineer, and we have done that. And I think tonight we need to approve a resolution to fund the driveway, and that would come out of fund balance. The amount, and I'll give you a copy here of the estimate. This is a preliminary estimate, it's and by no means a bid. This is by no means a bid, but it's a preliminary estimate by the engineer of what it would cost. So if you would take one of these and pass it down, the total estimate, according to Eugene Bowman, will be $2.26 million, and that includes a 15% contingency, I believe, and that's up. I think last year it was $1.9 million. I'm not sure if that 1.9 included a contingency or not. But,
It did, it was 10%,
10%,
but they took it up to 15,
And,
because costs are up.
But we would need to word the resolution in such a way that it would authorize us to use fund balance money to pay for the bid that was approved and accepted by this Board of Education and by Chris in the purchasing department. And, we would just ask the county commission to approve that, and we would need a county commissioner to carry that resolution. Mr. Iverson. I think Mr. Vanover said that he would help us as a sponsor also of carrying a resolution, get to which one, but I think it would be, if it's approved tonight, I'm jumping to the conclusion that it would be approved since we've gone through this process of spending $200,000. But we'll vote on that tonight, and then we would, if you would word it in such a way tonight that would authorize Evelyn to write a resolution, or the two of us write a resolution that would state what we just talked about, so I did not write one ahead of time on that. Any questions on what you have there?
Do we have any idea on the length of time? I mean,
Is that 15?
The initial response, if I remember correctly, was about 15 months from the time they broke ground. And they were trying to do it in such a way that it would not disrupt tennis up near that area. So if we bid it out this spring and start construction sometime around May, then that would be after tennis season is over. And depending on how fast they can do it, should be finished by the time tennis season is back in place the following year. And some of it will depend on the amount of work. And maybe with inflation like it is, that work might slow down just a little bit, and we might get it done faster. And this is assuming that the state will approve all the permits and everything of that nature. I think there's 2 that's required, if I remember correctly. And we've got to make sure that we don't disrupt Russell Creek. It will be a slow process anyway we go about it, but they can start on one end and kind of work their way up. And I think there are several trees that have to be cut along the bank line, if I'm not mistaken, or to the right going up from our town, or from Henry Hall Road. Any other questions on the access driveway? Now we move into the most painful session, portion of our meeting. Search for a new director. We talked about this last month. We advertised with the SBA. We received 13 applications for this position. And now it comes down to us. We got those in the mail today. We will be setting up a room for us to review those, but I want to review quickly the procedure that we approved last month. Each board member will review the written applications. You will submit your list to Mr. Hull, and Christie would have a ballot for you that you can list up to 4 names out of those 13 that you will interview. You do not have to list 4. If you only want 1 interviewed, that's fine. After Mr. Hull receives these ballots from all 7 board members, he will put together a ballot of those who receive 4 or more votes. And remember, they have to get 4 votes before they will be interviewed. 4 votes out of the 7 here. If more than 4 people receive 4 votes, then we would meet as a board and try to whittle it down to 4, where we would only be interviewing up to 4 people. That would be our goal. When you do your ballot, you do not have to put your name on that ballot. There's a place for your name, but it does not have to be. Mr. Cole will keep track of that. So there will be no tracking of who I request versus who you requested. Mr. Cole will be the one who will be putting together that ballot. Now, we need to talk about possible dates for you to review those applications. Obviously, the applications are here, and we can start reviewing those as soon as possible. We just need to set a deadline to have all applications reviewed with your ballots then into Mr. Bull. Today is the 18th. And if we set a deadline of next Friday, is that too quick? That gives you the rest of this week and next week to review those. If that's too quick, we can move forward to the following week and make a deadline of November the 4th or November the 3rd.
What hours would they be available?
Be available by a full month here every day through Christie, and we set it up so that you have to speak to the former with Christie, let them know that you're coming, and we'll set up a secure room where you won't be disturbed to review those. Going through 13 of them, it'll take you some time.
Is there a as we get it done and ready to go, we'll get the names by the next meeting? Or are we gonna do a special call meeting for something? What is the deadline of when we actually need to have more information to them? Because if we're hurrying up to do it by next Friday, but nothing will be acted on for 3 weeks, it's kind of depressing.
Next, another important question, when's the next meeting? Next meeting is scheduled for November the 3rd. So if we have it done prior to that, we'd be ready then to approve that list. And remember, when we get the list of 4 people, we still have to call and set appointments up, and it will take some time to organize that also. Our goal was to try to have somebody named by December the 1st. But if there's any way for us to have our work completed by November the 3rd, so that Mr. Hull can have with us the 4 candidates, and we approve those 4, and then we start setting appointments up. Is that too quick of a turnaround?
Next week's good.
While you're thinking about that one, then, we need to think about when we can actually do the interviews. Now, keep in mind, we only interview 1 person each day, each night, and those interviews could be fairly extensive depending on the direction that we take. We're gonna be in Opryland for the Tennessee School Board Association meeting on November the 10th through the 13th. So interviews would have to come sometime after the 13th. And it would probably require that we reserve 4 days, 4 evenings for us to do the interviews.
The week before or after Thanksgiving, really, where it rolls in.
When's Thanksgiving?
Sure.
Not that far, calendar.
So I mean, it's gonna put the week before or after that.
Right. And if you want to move the date past Thanksgiving and extend the date that we had set as a goal, we could do that. If you want to think about these things during our break and then make some decisions during the actual board meeting, we can do that too.
We knew how many we were going to come in. We just had 2 or 3, and we knew that would make a difference.
Well, we know 4 is the max,
So,
and my guess is you're not gonna have 4, but, you could.
Next Friday, I guess when you start looking at that's October 28th, that's probably, as long as we can take it about once and say it's probably gonna have to be the date. I think you're right. If not, then it's not gonna be there, we're ready in time for a meeting. So, yeah, you're right.
If I understood Mark correctly, you said next Friday, the 28th, would almost be the drop
Yeah,
dead date.
Just about has to be if we're gonna have it done by the next meeting. That gives Mr. Hull time to get it all together.
Well, I think I can do my part quickly. That doesn't seem like it would be too much. So if y'all can get them to me in the morning, I can have them in the afternoon. Hopefully, it'll
We,
be better.
we could change that date to December, I'm sorry, it's November the 2nd. That'd be a Wednesday, have your ballots in to Mr. Hull by Wednesday, and then we meet on Thursday, the 3rd.
I think that
That'd work.
nice day.
Sounds
Would
good.
that work for you, Paul?
So it basically gives us 2 weeks from tomorrow. So it's, gives 3 weeks.
Unless you wish to stay tonight and do it all tonight. Okay, it's November the 3rd, okay for everybody's next board meeting, that's when it's scheduled. Is that good for everyone? Do a 4:30 work session. As 6:30 meeting. And at that meeting, then we would finalize the ballot of 4 people or less that are selected.
Does Mr. Hull want us to send it them by email, take a picture and text it? How do you want us to give it to you?
We have a written ballot that Christie has worked.
But do I give it back to Christie?
No, it goes to him and
However you wanna do it,
Well, that was my question.
it's typically better if you could scan it and email it, but the picture works.
We can scan, we can make that copier scanner available here to where they can scan it to you, if that's how you wanna handle it.
That's fine.
I'm trying to keep everything as objective as we can to where I'm not aware of who you pick or anybody else picks, and, so you're free to look at all the things. I would encourage you, as you review these, there's only one copy, it will be there in the room. And if you make notes, keep in mind that any notes that you make are also, subject to, freedom of information request, is that right?
Yes, I think
Okay,
that's.
I just want to make sure that we all understand that, and we will have to redact some things. There's some information listed on applications that we need to redact, social security numbers and things of that nature, that some transcripts that's been sent in and so forth. So read those with caution, but we will redact those from And if you have a question about an individual in particular, and you want to talk with Dr. Grissom at the SBA, I'm sure that she would take her phone call to take a reference on that, if need be. And they are not going to send us the names of anybody that they did not go through and rank any of them. She asked about that. She said she didn't think there would be any need to do that, so I agreed with her, and she went ahead and FedEx those to us today. So those are as she received them. And there was a little bit of confusion on whether or not to turn in references written or whether just to turn in names, and a few people turned in references along with names. So if you see a discrepancy in the two, that's the reason, because a couple of them were told that they could turn in written references, and others were told just turn in names. There was a little confusion on that, so you'll see both. Other than that, they all seem to be in the same order, and organized in a yellow folder. So the deadline then, November the 2nd, can we say noon, November the 2nd, so Pat will have them?
All right.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna move on to new business. Item 7A is the United Way Sports Pass. This is something that our board has traditionally honored. We've been asked to honor this sports pass again this year. I've included in your packet a copy of it. This is a pass that is for an individual. It is not a family pass. Must be presented with the Eastman employee pass at gate for one single admission per game. And this is for middle school and high school home games, regular season only, and it excludes tournaments and all varsity home football games. This is for Eastman employees, an initiative for Eastman to encourage their employees to contribute to the United Way. So this will be something on our agenda that I will be making a recommendation to approve us later this evening. Any questions on the United Way Sports Pass? The next item on the agenda is item 7B, and it is titled Support Staff. We'll pass this to you right now. This is some budget information in regard to our fund balance. We've talked about a couple of things, at least one thing this evening in regard to our fund balance, and that is the access driveway at West Ridge. So prior to approving expenses, I'd like to make you aware of our current situation. So you can see what our current fund balance is there as of July 1, 2022, with an additional deposit on 9/22. Now, when you look at our fund balance, you need to recall that to balance our 22-23 budget, we budgeted a little over $6.1 million of our fund balance to balance that budget. Additionally, we must maintain a 3% mandate from the state, and you can see what that figure is there. That is 3% of our current budget amount. Current budget is $85,851,000. And you can see where that takes us down to around $13 million in the fund balance. We're estimating a $3 million for an access driveway. And then I want to also talk tonight about a potential bonus for our support staff. I'm going to be making a recommendation to you that we provide our support staff, only our support staff, a bonus. That bonus would cost $525,000 out of our fund balance, and you can see where that takes us to. That leaves us, if both of those projects were approved tonight, to include the access driveway and this support staff bonus, it would take us down to $9.8 million in our fund balance. As far as the bonus goes, and I want to give you some of my thinking there, you know, last year we did the salary equalization for our professional staff. We've done some work on our coaching supplements this year. We were able to do some things there. But I was not able to change our support staff salary pay scale, hourly pay scale, in the manner in which I had hoped to do. With the onset of TISA coming and the unsuredness of where we're going to be with TISA funding, because I still don't have those funding numbers solidified from the state. So I still can't say we're going to do this, this, and this with the salary or with the pay scale come February until I get some more insight to what our TISA funding is going to look like. We all know that this is our last year with BEP. Currently, things are happening at the state level that's looking at our current ADMs and all those other components of TISA, those unique learning needs that are referenced as ULNs, the economically disadvantaged number, you know, what are those potential outcomes going to look like that could bring more money into our school district, those industry certifications. There's lots of moving parts. But as we've had conversation and we've wanted to do something for our support staff, I will be making a recommendation to this board tonight that we give our full-time support staff a $1,000 bonus and our part-time support staff a $500 bonus for those who were employed with us as of May 26th, 2022 and are still currently employed in our school district. I have a date as of November 1, but that date can be as of tonight or whatever date you all want it to be. But I think it's important that they were employed with us last year and they're still currently employed with us. So I will be making that recommendation to you later this evening. But prior to making that recommendation and prior to you having to make a decision on an access driveway, I wanted you to look at the financial picture. These are, we work hard to prioritize and save for projects, large projects. And this is where we are. With that being said, I have nothing else, Mr. Chairman Jones, for this work session. We do have some refreshments upstairs for you between this and the start of the board meeting at 6:30. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Jones.
And we'll talk about board self-evaluation and, at the regular meeting, and we'll also talk about committee assignments. Those should be very brief. Conversation will be adjourned.